So I'm really excited about this opportunity. I'm not excited about the fact that I had to go last, but it actually gave me an opportunity. I learned so much from everybody's presentation that I literally went home and kind of tweaked my own slides a little bit for my presentation. And I just want to say, in connection with the last presentation, and what has been said about mental state and everybody is not as strong as they think, I know my lane. The topics that both Commissioner Meyer and Commissioner Rodriguez-McDowell talked about are very close to me, so I know that I cannot stand up here and talk about those issues with the professionalism that they did. And just very quickly, another story that connects, because we're talking about interconnectability and how all of those priorities connect. The reason why I left West Virginia in 1997 and moved to Charlotte, North Carolina, I was working for the Department of Health and Human Services, so I worked in some capacity of service all my life. I worked in financial services, determining food stamp, Medicaid, all of those things. But the Department of Health and Human Services was right beside of us. And one day I saw them bring in a 6-month-old baby girl with an STD. I lost it. My supervisor had to send me home. So I found my lane. I'm comfortable in the lane of business and how to get the resources to fix those things that we need to fix. And today I'm before you, I'm going to be making a request. So it gave me time to kind of cough up the butterflies that are in my stomach, because I haven't been in front of a group teaching kind of like thing in a while, particularly in front of like adults, college-age adults who are judging, and you want to make sure that your information lands the right way. So what I'm hoping to do today is just what I heard Commissioner Powell do in soliciting the board's support in having an ad hoc committee for global trade, specifically small business global trade, with a focus on the African Caribbean diaspora. Now, what my objectives are: present information to dispel the myths about the image, civil development, and profitability of countries on the continent of Africa, present data for support of a marketing and communication model for Mecklenburg County's small minority business owned, and I know that we do have a small minority business advisory. I have not talked to them. You know, in all honesty, in doing this research, I'm used to doing my own research because I'm a researcher. So I wanted to thank certain individuals like Roger Johnson, Dr. Johnson. I had 2 friends on the outside who are very knowledgeable about specifically African trade, and they have businesses, RHC Workforce and Global Impact Industries, Akofu Dasu, and Dr. Nayakan June, who I will mention later on, and Crystal Mill from the Charlotte International Trade, because I didn't even know we had a Charlotte International Trade Alliance. So what I want to do today is present data for support of a marketing communication model for Mecklenburg County's small minority-owned business that aligns with the most prevalent and profitable services and commodities on the continent of Africa. Form relationships with international trade organizations that will assist Mecklenburg County small business compete in the emerging African global trade diaspora. Other objectives: evaluate and reform data collection. Thought you would like this, Commissioner Griffin. Align the county's priorities of workforce development, Commissioner Altman, and economic development, Commissioner Susan Rodriguez-McDowell, with global trade opportunities. Explore the creation of an ad hoc committee for global trade and economic development for small minority-owned businesses with a focus on the continent of Africa. And the reason I'm focused so much on small minority businesses, and I know that that is a priority of the county, is because all of the information that I have been fed so far has been for the larger corporations. And I'm sure that we have an advisory council that reports back to the board on the economic health of small minority businesses. But having talked to small minority business owners in the community, I just have some ideas about how we can take advantage of some opportunities right now in the midst of some threats of diversity, equity, and inclusion going away. So basically, important points in data. Important fact to remember, taxes are how we pay for services. You've heard Chair Jarrell say that all the time. That's how we pay for services. We can't tax our way out of problems, but it's how we pay for services. Taxes are used to mitigate, they're supposed to be used to mitigate the impact of inequality. That's something that we got to remember. So, North Carolina, because of the quality workforce and overall economy of North Carolina, we've been named again as the #1 state to do business in 2025. I think there was one year where we hit #2 or #3. But this year, we were named the #1 state to do business. And there's a few reasons for that that have been orchestrated. The #1 reason is because of our tax breaks, right? So currently, the tax rate for businesses is 2.25%, keeping in mind that taxes are how we pay for services, and taxes are how we impact inequality. Current rate is 2.25%. It is projected to be 0 by the year 2030. Now, this ties back to Commissioner Powell's presentation. Another reason why we are the #1 state is because we have the lowest utility and water rates in the nation for corporations. So Duke Energy and the large data centers that are coming here, which use obsessive amounts of water, they like that. We have rates, they drain our resources, and we don't ask for a proportional rate of return on the resources that they use, in my opinion. Important points of data, best ranked in tiered counties in North Carolina to do business: Wake County, Chatham County, Nash County, and Mecklenburg County. And you can see there, I'm not going to read to you the reasons why. Mecklenburg is known as the second largest banking capital. I guess you guys know that already in the country. And Charlotte is the 14th fastest growing city in the country. And because we have Charlotte Douglas International Airport, that's one of our cash cows, right? We don't want control of that to go away. These are benefits only enjoyed by large corporations, not really small businesses, not when you drill down on the numbers. Important fact, taxes are how we pay for services. Taxes are used to mitigate inequality. Does everybody know that now? So, in this current economic environment that is unduly influenced by politics, it's easier for minority businesses to regress, to lose sales, lose market share, which is really, really important for the layman who doesn't understand that, or even go out of business. You know, the average lifespan of a new business is about 15 to 17 months before they go belly up, and that's because they don't have the support that's needed. Global trade opportunities can slow or reduce the impact of those varying threats. Why do we need global trade? And this is something that I really had to do a lot of research on, right? Job creation. In North Carolina, 1.3 million jobs were supported by trade, representing 20% of all jobs in the state. That's just from trade alone. In 2023, 11,000 companies exported goods from North Carolina, of which 87% were small and medium-sized enterprises. So we're leaving money on the table. There's some opportunities there for small businesses to take advantage of. And I'm going to show you why the continent of Africa is prime for us to target like now. In 2022, more than 300 million people were employed by affiliates of companies. At least 50% were foreign owned. So the foreign owned companies, when we talk about training students, those foreign languages that they take that are sometimes required, and they're like, I don't need that. I'm never going to use that. Well, you may not think you will ever use it, but it's going to be a benefit to you. we can train our students in CMS for these foreign trade opportunities that are right here on U.S. soil. Education and research, from 2023 to 2024, more than 24,000 international students were enrolled in North Carolina colleges and universities, contributing $914 million to the North Carolina economy. That's significant. So other benefits of global trade on small business: expanded customer base. These are kind of, common sense. Increased revenue and growth, market diversification, reduced competition, access to international government procurement, and trade policy advocacy, which that's a part of what I'm trying to do now. Why does North Carolina need global trade? Exports and growth. Who trades with North Carolina? So North Carolina exported about $72 billion in goods and services to foreign countries in 2023. Now, I know we hear foreign trade and we think tariffs, and that right now it's not a good idea to get into foreign trade. Put a pin in that. So with Canada, you can see the list. Canada, China. Canada is our biggest import-export partner. China, Mexico, Ireland, United Kingdom. Mecklenburg County currently has trade contracts with 39 different countries, but only two South African countries that should read. South Africa is actually a country on the continent of Africa. So South Africa. So, and there's like a list, I have a list of all of the international companies that Mecklenburg does business with, and if there's someone here from that department that could correct me. We have Sappi Fine Paper, and we have Saf Marine Incorporated. And that's where I need my, let me see if I can pull up how do I pull up this spreadsheet now? Click on that Mecklenburg County currently, and a spreadsheet should come up, because I want to show you all of the other countries that we do business with. Only two countries on the continent of Africa. There's a lot. There's about 39 to 40 countries that we do. So we'll move on from that. Okay, there we go. Now, what I want to do is explain what diaspora means. Diaspora means to disperse. Disperse a group specifically, usually a movement of people away from their ancestral territory. So when you hear people talk about the African Caribbean diaspora, we're talking about the fact that there was a forced disbursement of people from Africa to various regions of the world, right? They may still hold on to a remnant of their culture, the emotional ties to that culture. That's why there's a difference in how we address mental illness and how we address different things, because there is a difference. Diaspora maintains emotional, cultural, or even political ties to the country of origin, in this case, Africa. And Africans were dispersed on these little West Indies, that kind of thing. That's how in Jamaica, that's how and of course the transatlantic slave trade, which dispersed many in North Carolina and Georgia. The traditions and active support of homeland affairs. So that's where there's an opportunity for us. The worldwide dispersal of people of African descent, historically linked to forced migration from the transatlantic slave trade, but also including voluntary migrations. It is important because these communities have created a global network that is right here. There's a huge global network with shared heritage contributing significantly to the cultural, economic, and political development of both their new homelands and Africa. So there's a trade, there's a back and forth. We hear all the time about how Africa was raped. Well, now we have an ability to actually provide to the motherland, it's called, of Africa. Myths about African countries. One of the systemic barriers to realizing the vast global trade opportunities of African countries are myths that persist about the continent due to a lack of education on multiple levels of business. Many don't understand that Africa itself is not a country, it is a continent. South Africa is a country. It's composed of 54 different countries. All countries on the continent of Africa are not impoverished or require aid and they have infrastructure. This is one of the myths that they have no infrastructure to support varying business models. It's a myth that Africa can only provide raw materials and cannot manufacture products or provide progressive services that involve technology. So there is a real raid on precious minerals right now, and I think that's the only thing people think you can get from Africa, right? U.S. companies can't compete with cheaper Chinese and Indian goods. So a lot of times it's more expensive to get things from the continent of Africa than Chinese, or so it's thought, the Chinese and Indian products. Many are unaware of the African Growth and Opportunity Act, AGOA. And what this is, and this is something that I learned, since its enactment in 2000, the African Growth and Opportunity Act has been at the core of U.S. economic policy and commercial engagement with Africa. So there's already a framework that's been set up. There are already rules and regulations that have been incorporated, understanding the political atmosphere and environment of Africa. There are policies already set forth for that. Why Mecklenburg County should pursue African trade. North Carolina itself has seen an 850% increase in African immigrant population from 20,000 residents in 2000 to 190,000 residents in 2023. And I don't have those numbers specifically for Mecklenburg County, but you can assume, and I'll show on the next slide, how many there are in the Charlotte area. There are over 1,200 African-owned businesses in North Carolina contributing to the state's economy. North Carolina hosts 25 African cultural festivals, 450 African cuisine restaurants, and has 3,200 African students in its universities, showcasing a strong cultural impact. The Africa Growth and Opportunity Act has contributed to a 13% growth in trade volume from Africa to the U.S. from 2020 to 2023. Now, that's 13% within 3 years, particularly in agriculture, textiles, and energy sectors. Now, when you're talking anything with regarding the government and trying to set up a foundation, show me the money, right? I feel like I needed to have like sound bites, show me the money right here on these slides. So the future of U.S.-Africa trade relations will focus on sectors like technology, huge technology boom there, and lots of talent that can be utilized here back and forth. Technology, green energy, and materials, specifically precious minerals. I left that off the slide, presenting promising opportunities for both regions between 2024 and 2034, it is projected. Charlotte, we have, and this is basically the Charlotte region, about 45,000. So really the highest population of African immigrants. And I can be fact-checked on any of these things. I welcome that. I kind of relied on some research, both from who Roger Johnson provided me with, and I contacted the Charlotte, I looked at data from the Charlotte Regional Business Alliance. It wasn't disaggregated, and there's not a whole lot of business on Africa specifically. There is on international trade, but not Africa specifically. But look at that, we have 45,000. Raleigh does the most business right now with African countries. They have 32,000. So we're leaving money on the table. Why Mecklenburg County should pursue African trade. It's a platform for navigating the systemic barriers that we have right now. The barriers are getting taller and bigger every single day. November, we will run out of funding for SNAP. Medicaid is on the chopping block. Small business is the economic engine for everyone, everybody, but they get the least incentive from county, from state, it seems to me. And if there are some programs that I'm leaving out that are beneficial to small businesses, please let me know. So this is an avenue of improving small business, helping them, not just giving them, a handout one time or giving them a grant one time, but providing them constant support, technical support to say, okay, you did this right, you did this wrong, reaching out, saying what they need to be successful in this area, which is bountiful, it's plentiful, it's gaining help. But it impacts digital equity. We still have a problem with digital equity. It addresses the social determinants of health and social factors. Definitely policy reform. Imagine being at the forefront of policy reform. Mecklenburg County actually shaping and telling Raleigh what's best for us here in this county as it relates to global trade, and telling them that they should get on board for this because it brings money to the region. It's impacting them specifically. And the community connection. Like I said, we have a large African population here that we need to connect with. So, implementation roadmap and next steps. That's already been put together as well. There are other organizations that have been doing this for a while. Like I said, Raleigh-Durham has an excellent program that they've already established. So establish a county ad hoc advisory committee and ad hoc committee here. I don't know really the difference between just an advisory committee and having a committee that involves both, the Board of County Commission itself. Establishing civil society organization communities, and launch a collaborative innovations with a call to action. In May, I learned our chair invited, or welcomed rather, the BABN, that was in May 2025, and that's the British American Business Network. So you have these hubs that are responsible for working with whatever continent or country and helping them to do business in the U.S. at ports that are most advantageous to them. We don't have a hub for Africa. There's all these other countries, but we don't have one for the continent of Africa. So that is my call to action. So a couple of weeks ago, I reached out to our chair and to our county manager, and they allowed me to go to the Global Africa Summit. And I'm sorry, it was so impactful. It was kind of life-changing for me. I have never met, I pride myself on being able to have a conversation about just about everything in the room, but I used to always teach and tell my students, there's always somebody smarter in the room than you. Even with all of my business acumen, I felt so puny and so small. These people were brilliant, talking about trade, talking about how much money they were bringing in to the U.S. and to their states, and how much money was going back to the countries that they served in Africa. I met some amazing people. So this was the summit. It was held October 14th and 15th. It was in Washington, D.C. at Catholic University. Also a beautiful campus. It was amazing. But it taught me so much, and it just made me realize, instead of, we have and the purpose of all of these cuts is to create chaos and panic. So I always want to be found having at least some options for the panic. Like, what are we going to do? We can't just lay down and die and tell our residents, well, we can't do anything about that. You find avenues to create revenue. And I know that our county manager had talked about foreign direct investment, creating a platform for that and having the county get more involved in that our growth was flat at 3%. Well, we can find other ways to improve our growth. So these are just some of the people that presented during the Global Africa Summit. These are pictures from the summit. Like I said, I had such an amazing time. The campus was beautiful. And last week, as a continuation, because Global Trade Awareness Week is actually in November, and I will be having a town hall on November 20th. Dr. Ayakan, let me make sure I'm saying her Nayakan, June, she came and visited me at County Commission office, and that's on the top right side. That's how you see us. She was so proud to be connecting with someone in the United States. She's from Kenya, and she has she sits on boards in Kenya, and she has her own company as well. But she goes around and talks and provides educational information to the states about global opportunities within the continent of Africa. And it was just such an honor to speak with her and hear her talk about business from the standpoint of, and they have the same issues with, being the woman in the room. She talked about how, when she wanted to train women and these young girls to do certain things, that they didn't even make the equipment that would fit the size of them, because that's what they're trying to do now, is to broaden the vision of how they utilize their people. So there's opportunity. There's potential to expand for both Africa and for us. And I am delighted to take any questions.
Well, thank you, Commissioner, for the presentation. Colleagues, before I open it up for questions and comments, I need to clarify one thing, Commissioner. Your ask is specific, but I want to make sure when you talk about the committee, are you talking about an ad hoc committee, or are you talking about a standing committee? I mean, I know you used the term ad hoc, and I want to just...
I don't know.
Okay. Just for clarity,
Right.
ad hoc committees are appointed by the chair.
Okay.
Standing committees are the ones that, we certainly, that you're familiar with. And then anytime we talk about committees, obviously it's a resource component,
Right.
Particularly on staff, and we only have 9 members of the board too. So I just want to kind of frame that up in the right way when we talk about adding another committee.
Understood.
All right. So thank you for that. And with that being said, I'm going to start with Commissioner Leek, and then we'll go around.
No comment.
No comment?
Not at this point.
All right. I'll go with Commissioner Griffin.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. Excellent presentation in terms of information about global trade. When you said Mecklenburg County is doing business with 39 different countries, are you referring to Mecklenburg County proper or Mecklenburg County government?
Mecklenburg County proper,
Okay.
not the government.
Okay. That would, yeah, I mean, I was looking at that. The other piece, because it's economic development, that always catches my ear. Mm-hmm. And so we still are waiting on a policy. At some point, hopefully, we'll have a policy, and maybe some of that may be fleshed out there or not fleshed out there. But would hope that we'd have a policy that gives some direction to the staff. But right now, we don't have a policy per se. So that might be something way down the road that might be helpful. It may not be helpful. But I wanted to mention that we got to have a policy somewhere to give direction if we're going to try to do something. But my interest was in terms of Mecklenburg County or versus Mecklenburg County proper.
Right. These are corporations.
How do you see this body having impact as a county government? Are you looking at Mecklenburg County?
Yes.
Us.
Yes.
Versus Mecklenburg County proper.
Yes, I am. And there are so many ways, and I had to find a way to pare it down so that I could get just the briefest of explanations out on the slides. But there is a way to do it. Raleigh, Wake County is doing it. We can look at them as a model. But there are ways that we can have small businesses specifically target that population people. That's why I wanted to talk about how many people we have here from the continent of Africa or of African descent, how many products and services that we can actually import from Africa. There's already a framework set up, United States, and between there, we have experts that know how to do this stuff. But it literally blew my mind, the information that I learned at this conference.
Last question. is it Wake County government doing it, or Wake? Because we have a regional business alliance that is the engine or the leadership that
Right.
looks out, domestic and internationally. Is it Wake County government, or is it Wake County?
It is a public-private partnership, so they're both involved. But yes, Wake County government is involved as well. And I don't know, in-depthly, I don't have the numbers as to what they contribute.
Gotcha.
But it is a public-private partnership, and they definitely, have a hub for how to address small business entities rather than just corporations.
Thank you. My time's up. Well, just if you can provide some additional information. for me,
Absolutely.
That would be for clarification, because I was just feeling like some tension between Mecklenburg County per se versus the Regional Business Alliance, because it seemed like some of that, or a big chunk of that, might be, in their
It is.
Year of
It is. They
operating.
have an FTZ, these foreign, they have zones, right? But that's why I talked about equity and inclusion and looking through a lens of equity, because they have all of these countries, a lot of German countries, and, a lot of British countries, two South African countries.
Okay. Thank you. Thank you, Mr. Chairman.
Thank you. Let me go to Commissioner Meyer, then Commissioner,
Rodriguez McDowell.
I've been there before.
thank you, George.
I know.
Doing the most.
Okay, help me out. I'm not sure who to ask, if it's you or if somebody in the room.
We'll get there.
Global trade, and this might go to our attorney. Trade in of itself is a federal responsibility. How do we do this? I mean, are there regulations that,
This is not an area where I'm familiar with the
okay.
county.
Mr. Manager, do you?
Well, I'll go ahead and share my comments about this now. And I've had a conversation with Commissioner YTI about this. I'm looking for clear direction from the board relative to her interest in going down this path. To Tyrone's point, we have to educate ourselves in this space, this global trade. But as she's mentioned, she's attended a couple of conferences. She has a second town hall meeting coming up. I spoke at her first one as well, along with the chair. But in terms of committing resources to continue to pursue this as an area of interest or a priority, I need to hear from you all if this is a collective interest as opposed to me solely working with one commissioner here. I appreciate that direction, whether it's today or at some other point.
Oh, and something I left out with regard to that and tying it back, and this goes to resources. The two areas that, and Mike can attest to this when we met, is workforce development. Those are the only two areas that I'm looking at. Research studies, to your point, Attorney Wade, and workforce development. Those are the only two areas. I'm not talking about getting deeply, heavily into trade. Those are the two items. You have to crawl before you can walk. Obviously, we need to educate ourselves in this whole thing. So I kind of rushed through, left that out. But those are the two specific areas that we see the most promise: workforce development and research studies.
Well, I am not at all opposed to looking into it and finding out what we can do as a county. I'm totally in support of, more options to do business and to better this county. So I'm not sure, I'm not sure really what I'm thinking right now, if that makes sense. Like, I'm still learning about this, so I have to think about this, but.
And that's fair, and I've got white papers, I've trudged through a bunch of research and done a lot of research myself. And this is my way of contributing as a solution to a portion of what we do. That's why I said narrowly, workforce development and research.
All right, well, thank you. I appreciate your presentation.
Thank you. Commissioner Rodriguez McDowell.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. I'm pretty sure at one point you talked about tariffs and you said put a pin in it. And did you come back to that?
I did not come back to that, but you're right.
I was listening for it because I was like, okay.
Yeah, so going back to the AGORA, that is connected to the whole tariff thing. There are certain countries that have been excluded from certain tariffs and things of that nature. Right now, since we don't do a whole lot of business, then those tariffs are excluded. So there's kind of an opportunity, but like I said, that is something that's further down the road. That's just my way of explaining that there is opportunity here. The two things that I want us to focus on is the workforce development, education, and research.
Okay, I'm a little disconnected on the workforce development, like how does it pertain? Like, I don't get the connection.
I know. And it's, like I said, this was a weighty subject to just put in 15 to 16 slides. What I'm thinking, and I just alluded to it a little bit, is training our young people on what is needed to do business with these global corporations that are already here, as well as those that we could potentially partner with on the continent of Africa, because there is a demand, a need for it. Just like we didn't know that, there's a need for certain trades, there's a need for, so we can train our young people. If we expose them to the right thing and they have that interest, they may want to travel to Africa
Talk to you about this.
for an exchange program, but there is a way to incorporate and increase our workforce development with the demand that is there for countries in Africa.
I'll talk to you about it.
Okay, thank you.
Thank you. Commissioner Powell?
Well, thank you for your presentation.
Yes.
I always love to hear new ideas. But I'm just wondering, I feel like we need so much more information from, I loved Arthur's questions. I feel like we need a lot more information about what we're allowed to do and our role in this. And, really, is this the space of the Regional Business Alliance? And so I'm just wondering, if I need more clarity on, our role in this, and I don't have it.
Right. And again, I'm not asking for anyone to make a decision today. I'm saying that this is something that we can pursue, number one. We have economic development. Yeah, that's in their wheelhouse too. What I'm saying is there is a lack of equity in the countries that are being targeted for development, and we're leaving money and opportunity on the table. And we can use our small businesses and train them on how to get those commodities, especially goods and services and things of that nature, and workforce development specifically, training their people and training our students. So there's opportunity there. This is in no way, there's no way I can provide all of the information that you need to make a decision, probably within the next, but I wanted to introduce it because it is part of our job.
I appreciate it because, the conversation you have to have a conversation sometimes to spur action. And I have to, I don't know if this is the right place for action, but North Carolina needs to pay attention to, who we are having trade with. And so, from your slides, it looks like they need to pay better attention to it. So how do we spur that action if it's not us? Your voice matters, you bringing this up matters. So.
And I want to directly talk about the small businesses, because all of those things that I talked about impact, on the Economic Development Committee, what I've been able to sit on before. I don't sit on the committee, but what I've been able to see so far are the benefits to corporations, not to our small businesses, and certainly not to our small minority women business enterprises. So,
Thank you. Thank you.
Thank you. Commissioner Altman?
Thank you, Commissioner YTI. I really enjoyed learning about the African diaspora, and particularly as represented in Mecklenburg County in the state of North Carolina. That's extremely interesting to me. I am concerned about the lack of ties. We certainly want to be sure that we are pursuing economic opportunities, wherever they may be, and that's quite a difference that you've got up there on that slide. So I look forward to hearing from Dr. Johnson when she's back in town. I would really like to get her lens, get her recommendations, but as a member of the Economic Development Committee, and I am interested in ensuring we're leaving no stone unturned in terms of recruiting great businesses to come to Mecklenburg County and bringing great jobs and workforce development.
And again, I want to emphasize, I'm not talking about bringing corporations to North Carolina with regard to trade. There's a lot to unpack here.
So with respect
I'm talking
to
about
your
small
comment,
business.
Vice Chair, before I have staff tied up with taking this on, I need direction from you all.
Okay, Commissioner Dunlap.
I think the difficulty, and you can tell the uneasiness about this discussion among the commissioners in that I, for one, am not certain that this is something that we should be pursuing or anything that really affects what we do from a budgeting standpoint, which is what I thought most of these discussions were about. Additionally, I don't know that this is even our responsibility. And I thought Commissioner Leak would talk about this earlier, but Commissioner Leak started a small business consortium, and as a part of that, there were people from the African diaspora who coordinated efforts to bring business to Mecklenburg County, but it was initiated by them as opposed to something being initiated by us, and she could tell you more about that. But in terms of setting up an ad hoc committee, the chair has the prerogative to do that. Ad hoc committees are appointed for a specific purpose for a specific time. He can start them and end them whenever he wants to. But in terms of making it a board function, one of the standing committees, it would take a vote of 5 people to do that. It would be staffed by 4 commissioners. I think most people at this point are already committed to areas of interest. I know that there's some of you who are doing more than your share of serving on committees. And I don't know that there's more than we can do other than to eliminate a committee that currently exists. And I don't know that anybody is willing to do that. I think the manager is fair to hear from the commissioners about whether or not that's something that we want to invest time and money in. And I'll just speak for myself. I don't see it.
Thank you.
And that's fair, and I understand. This is actually, as I'm thinking about it, this is my 3 minutes that Elaine talked about. Something that I'm passionate about because, again, I don't see small businesses being incentivized or helped. I feel like they're marginalized, and I feel like there is an opportunity within Africa and trading with those countries and teaching them how to get additional monies. And again, we talked about foreign direct investment and things of that nature. So it is a way to get additional revenue. And just like we see a need for Economic Development Committee, this is another avenue for that. Because economic development deals with corporations, not with small businesses. And I understand we have a small business advisory board, but do we have a report out on a routine basis from them?
Yeah, sure.
So I really appreciate the last part you said. I want to just put on the radar, and please correct me if needed, but
I got you.
my recollection is that we are undertaking an economic development to come up with additional criteria to ensure that our TIG and BIP incentives can become more accessible to smaller groups, because we want to be sure the taxpayer is always positive, tax revenue positive, but we are, I know we've discussed, looking to ways to broaden the work in economic development. I'm not dreaming this, right? To
2.0.
And
access smaller businesses.
And maybe that's what it is.
and
It
give
becomes
access
a
to
part of economic development, and that's something like they can take on so that we can get them the opportunities that they
Right.
need.
And so I just wanted to make sure that that was out in the domain here, because I do think that is, thank you, 2.0, that is being worked on by staff.
Commissioner Rodriguez McDowell.
Yeah, I just wanted to mention that we do have, I'm super proud of what we've been doing in the minority small business space. And I think maybe we need to, it might be good for us to do a presentation around where we started and where we've come to in economic development around, with what Jamilia's doing and Janelli and all those guys. Like, they're doing amazing work. And it kind of bristles me a little bit when I hear you say we're not doing anything for small, minority businesses, because we really are. And our Economic Development Committee is not just about large corporations, but I think what the vice chair was getting to is that the BIPs and the TIGs, those kinds of things are usually set up around those larger corporations. But as she mentioned, we have always been, as long as I've been on Economic Development Committee, trying to push down whatever we can do towards small businesses. Because
And I apologize. I didn't mean to insinuate or specifically state that we're not. I just feel like, just from what I've seen, again.
Yeah, so I think we might need to, have a presentation around that, or maybe, we can meet with you and talk about where we were and where we've come. And it might be a great topic for us as a refresher, because like you're fairly new to the board, so maybe we haven't done it since you've been here. And so maybe that would be a great topic for us to do on one of our meetings.
Yeah, absolutely. Jamila has done an amazing job. That whole department does an amazing job, and I did not mean to minimize that and the work that they've done.
Yeah.
It's just that I see an opportunity because of the environment that we're in right now.
Right.
That is my point.
And I didn't want to be unkind in any kind of way, but I have to agree with Commissioner Dunlap that I think we're pretty stretched where we are, and I can't see anything that I would give up in order to bring another committee into my world. So I just wanted to put that out there.
So let me go to Commissioner Leek.
Let me first say thank you to the board for listening. I'm not going to get involved beyond what I've already done and still doing. I started with 4 women as a small business consortium, and it worked well. We had 400 and 500 people that would come to my meetings, even from out of the state, even from out of the country, but not to the point that you are speaking of to start a new committee. We have an Economic Development Committee, but I would like to talk with our manager first, because nobody can speak for me but me, because I did the work. And it was successful, and it's still successful. And I sent 9 women to Africa. Didn't ask a dime from the county, from anybody. I gave money. They paid part of their way. So I don't want to go into a long discussion. And we had a wonderful fellowship. I can't even begin to talk about it. Many of you have experienced being with me with this process, because I invited you to come. But it's not at the point where I would recommend that we set up a board, that we have 5 people to 9 people or whatever to set up a committee. I plan to talk to the manager first before I continue to move forward beyond what I'm doing and will continue to do without money from the county.
That's totally fair, and I appreciate that. Like I said, there are lots of things that I need to learn, but like I said, I'm going on things that I see a need with. And
I didn't say that for any.
No. I have been told constantly about your contributions to small businesses, and that you have standing room only town halls with regard to that. I'm trying to zero in on, again, an opportunity. If we spend money and give incentives to certain groups, certainly, if we say we're going to do business looking at a lens of equity, then I want it to be equitable to small minority businesses and just evaluating how we provide services to them.
Okay, thank you.
Right.
So let me say a couple of things just to wrap this up. One, thank you for the presentation. Where I'm at right now is we're not even close to an ad hoc committee from my perspective as chair at this point. I think what I've heard from my colleagues is that excellent information, great perspective. The disconnect may be a little bit of understanding what our role would be, particularly when we frame it as global trade. Mm-hmm. When you funnel it down to small business, I think there would be a consensus here that we are working with small businesses. Now, is there a possibility or is it possible for us to look at immigrant small businesses? I think we need to talk to Jamelia and others, which that would be on you, to figure out how do we engage with that subset of the population.
We
right?
already do that, and that's
So
what I'm saying.
Hold on, Commissioner,
Yeah.
let me finish.
Okay.
So if we're already doing that, then there would be a level of redundancy that I think the board has always had apprehension with respect to redundancy if we're already doing that. So what is it, and I'm just putting this challenge out there, what is it that we're not doing that you would ask the board or that staff would need additional resources to penetrate deeper in, whatever area? But I think, and to tie that to the workforce priority, if there's a tie to that, help us understand what that tie. But if we start with global trade, I think there's just going to be a disconnect with not just the board, but the staff on how we
Can't do it.
impact what the county's role would be with respect to global trade.
Can't do it.
Big picture. The second thing is, if Wake County government is doing this, I would be curious from David, Mr. Manager, to see what that is. I mean, we can reach out, because I would be curious to know what that is. And to see what that does look like. But I think where most of us are right now is support for small businesses, number one, our immigrant community and what they can add to this community. And also, I think when we talk about role of government, I think it's possible that our role could be facilitation, working with our partners like the Alliance.
Right.
So what do they do to impact this? Because they already have this structure, this resource that is recruiting businesses and things of that nature. So what I would ask you to do is continue to help educate us. This was a first shot, to your point, this was a first stab at this to help us through it. And then, we can continue to have that conversation. But I think it's going to be a little tough, and I want to be able to help where I can, but to facilitate staff resources is going to be very difficult until we can get a little further down the line.
Yeah, I think that was probably too big of an ask. But just to your point, like we have, I think it's called, what's it's a Latino group. So they have like these hubs, and that's what I
Spark
was trying to
Central. Through the Latin American Coalition?
We have coalitions, but the one that does not seem to have any help from the Charlotte Regional Business Alliance, they couldn't help me. There's no African countries, and we have a large African population. We have no hub here. We have no direction. So again, through the lens of equity, we have a large group of folks here, and trade was way too big to dream about. But from the standpoint of workforce development, developing our students to speak certain languages, to prepare them for jobs that are already here. Like we have students that learn jobs for Siemens, to speak German and things of that nature. We don't prepare students for.
So I don't think we would disagree. I think one of the things that this board, and I want us to be consistent with respect to the way we approach things. So everybody in their presentations has referenced data. You've given us good data, but then when you come down and you talk about this particular group doesn't have a hub, what would be helpful and useful with your contacts, if you bubbled up to us and said, hey, out of the 3,500 African immigrant businesses in Mecklenburg County, this is what they're saying the need is, or, giving us more meat on the bone would just be helpful, because right now, we just don't have that
Yeah.
perspective to say, we trust what you're saying, but we don't have that perspective of the community saying, hey, we need this, and we're missing this, and this is a gap to fill.
That's understood.
We don't even have a know what resources would be needed or investment. So we just have to have a lot more meat on the bone. To your point earlier, I think this is a great first pass, high level overview. Now, if you want to drill it down into the workforce component and the other bucket that you name, let's
Research
kind
and
of,
education.
yeah, let's kind of sharpen that up.
Thank you. That's all I asked.
Thank you, ma'am.